Right, was this outsourced? Are there non-union employees doing this? Or could it even be AI? But hey, ultimately, time will tell how this all plays out. And then in huge business and entertainment news, Netflix is shelling out over $5 billion for the WWE. Billies with a B. Though specifically, this deal centers around the WWE's flagship live weekly show, Raw, which I, in this moment, have decided it's no more Netflix and chill. It is now Netflix and Raw, dog. Though, you can keep going Raw the old-fashioned way until 2025 when this deal starts. There's also some notable specifics regarding countries. The deal is focused on the United States, Canada, the UK, Latin America, with more countries coming with time. Netflix also gets to air WWE shows and specials internationally outside the US as available, that including the likes of SmackDown and other premium live events like WrestleMania. Though in the States, those premium events will stay on Peacock, which I will say, for me, I just feel like we're going to see more people using VPNs. I imagine there's going to be a number of people spoofing where they're watching from so they can just keep watching everything on Netflix rather than having a whole different Peacock subscription. But overall, I mean, this is just a huge deal. Not only because we're talking about a 10-year deal around $500 million a year, but I mean, because we're talking about Raw, which is one of the longest airing live shows ever. And for the first time in 3 decades, it won't be airing on linear TV. And that $500 million, that's nearly double what the WWE's previous deal was worth with NBC Universal. One of the big winners coming out of this is actually Dwayne Johnson, right? The Rock, because he's not only joining the parent company's board, but the company is now giving him full ownership of his trademarked ring name. And he's now already inked a merchandising agreement with the company. And I'll say for me personally, I find this very interesting. And it doesn't even matter if like you care about wrestling, because this is showing yet another big grab and swing from your streaming providers embracing and scooping up live television. And when we see things like the resistance leading up to the Chiefs-Dolphins game only being on Peacock, we then see it become the most streamed live event in the US ever, and Peacock being #1 in the App Store. And they paid like $110 million for that game. Though I will say the NFL and other entertainment, it's very different. As far as like actually watching live events, the NFL is just miles above most other forms of entertainment these days, right, as far as viewership numbers. But also with Netflix and the WWE and this live entertainment, it's really interesting to think like how much of this is built up around their ad tier subscription level. Or with this being live, are they still going to have ad breaks? Does Netflix see this as their 10-year juggernaut to build their ad business around? And while time will be the ultimate decider, and if this is like the most genius move ever or a big flop, there's no doubt that in the meantime, this drastically changes the landscape. And then should the parents of school shooters be held responsible for their children's actions? That's the question that's playing out right now, with this historic trial of the mom of a 2021 school shooter now beginning. Because back in November of 2021, a then 15-year-old shooter opened fire at Oxford High School. He killed 4 people, he injured several others. He then was charged as an adult and he pled guilty to 24 charges, with that including 1 count of terrorism causing death and 4 counts of first-degree murder. And last month, we saw him sentenced to life in prison without parole. But now his parents are also facing charges in connection with the shooting, with James and Jennifer Crumbley both facing 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. And Jennifer's trial begins today with jury selection. And as it turns out, these 2 parents actually bought the semi-automatic handgun for their son just 4 days before he used it in the shooting. And then, going even further, prosecutors argue that while James and Jennifer aren't being accused of knowing what their son was going to do, they claim that the parents ignored his mental health struggles and allowed his access to the gun, because there were several warning signs leading up to the shooting. Like how the day before, their son was caught searching for ammunition online by a teacher. When school officials called Jennifer, she didn't respond, instead just texting her son saying, "Lol, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught." Also that night, authorities say the son recorded a video planning the shooting, and on the day of the shooting, teachers found a note in his desk with a drawing of a gun and someone being shot that read, "The thoughts won't stop, help me." When he was confronted for this, he said it was just a design for a video game, and his parents were called in for a meeting with the counselor, where then notably they refused to take him home for the day and school officials allowed him to stay in school. With the shooter then moving forward with his plan and committing one of the worst school shootings that Michigan has ever seen. And so with all that, prosecutors argue, hey, when the parents were brought in for this meeting, where the fucking drawing that showed a gun being used to kill someone, they had at least the duty to tell the school about the gun they had just bought for him. With Oakland County prosecutor Karen McDonald saying, the notion that a parent could read those words and also know that their son had access to a deadly weapon that they gave him is unconscionable. The prosecutors also said that the Crumbleys were negligent for not securing the gun at home. Though notably for that specific claim, you have some experts saying it's going to be an uphill battle for them to argue, because actually at the time, Michigan didn't have a safe storage law requiring adults to secure firearms if their kids are around. Jeffrey Swartz, a former county judge in Florida and law professor, saying, in order to be guilty of involuntary manslaughter, you have to prove that there was a legal duty that was breached. Where was their legal duty? And right now, we really don't know how this is going to play out. The Crumbleys are essentially the first parents to be charged like this. We're talking about breaking new legal ground. And according to Arthur Bush, a former prosecutor, this case in general may be hard to prosecute, saying the fact that they bought him a gun when he had these profound mental health problems problems, that's pretty reckless. But the closer the public begins to look at this, I think there are parents who could say, that could be me. I have this insolent, oppositional child, and I get to be liable for that? That doesn't seem fair to me. And the Crumblies' defense team arguing that these parents couldn't have seen this coming, and saying in a failed attempt to dismiss the charges, after every school shooting, the media and those affected are quick to point to so-called red flags that were missed by those in the shooter's life. But the truth of the matter is one cannot predict the unimaginable. But as far as what happens next, you have the Crumblies both pleading not guilty, also opting to be tried separately. And so while Jennifer's trial begins today, James's trial is being scheduled for March. Which I will say, with them being tried separately, it makes you wonder, are the Crumblies going to blame one another? Even Swartz saying, if I'm projecting in this particular case, each parent is going to point the finger at the other. Which one knew about their son's problems, who was responsible for hiding and securing the gun? But regarding those defending the parents, you've got the shooter himself, who told the judge at his sentencing that he was, quote, a really bad person, saying he couldn't stop himself, and of his parents, quote, they did not know and I did not tell them what I planned to do, so they are not at fault. But ultimately, he's not the one that gets to decide. And if they're found guilty, they face up to 15 years in prison. And so with all that, I gotta pass the question off to you. Do you think the Crumblies should be held criminally liable? Did they fail their community and as parents to the point that they should go to prison? Yes, no, maybe so, why not? Let me know your thoughts in those comments down below. And then we've got more news you need to know about today, but I gotta take a quick second to pay some bills. Because I love food, especially great food from amazing chefs. And thanks to today's sponsor, Cook Unity, it's possible to have great meals from fantastic chefs that are created in small batches in micro kitchens across the nation. Right? Cook Unity works with top chefs from the likes of Food Network alums, James Beard Award winners, and acclaimed restaurateurs. People who know good food. We've been enjoying what I call delicious ease from Cook Unity for a year now. Meals are chilled and sent fresh, not frozen, so they're ready to heat and eat. Menus are updated weekly, and new chefs are always joining the team. Recently we indulged in Iron Chef and James Beard Award winner Jose Garces' shrimp and chorizo paella, which, that chorizo, decadent. That's not a word I regularly use, but it's spot on here. Jose Garces is a leading culinary authority of Spanish and Latin American food, which just next time I'm in Philly, I'm definitely hitting up his tapas restaurant, Amada. But main thing, Cook Unity offers a range of meals, including vegan, paleo, and gluten-free options, and the subscription is super flexible, making it easy to pause, skip weeks, or cancel anytime. And if you haven't already, I recommend that you check them out because they're the most convenient way to get a wide variety of restaurant-quality food from award-winning chefs delivered to your door. Just go to cookunity.com/Franco or click that link in the description box and use code DeFranco50 to get 50% off your first order of Cook Unity meals. And then we need to talk about this Maryland Midwives disaster because it goes beyond just Maryland, with parents forced to watch those responsible for the death of their babies just move on. So let me explain. So the Maryland State Board of Nursing is responsible for overseeing nurses and midwives, with the latter being someone trained to assist in childbirth while not necessarily being a doctor. And while they're not super common, they're also not unheard of. In fact, according to the Government Accountability Office, midwives assisted in 12% of the births in the U.S. in 2021. And this is the number of midwives and midwifery students have increased in recent years. Notably, the extent of care midwives can provide, it varies by state. There are different types. A certified nurse midwife is one that has education in nursing and typically attends on patients within a hospital. But then certified professional midwives learn through apprenticeships and experience and don't work within a hospital, instead attending to most of the home births across the country. And in Maryland, they're referred to as direct entry midwives, with Maryland law requiring them to get a license from the State Board of Nursing and credentials from the North American Registry of Midwives. And that licensing, it's one of the main functions of the state nursing board, along with the investigation of complaints. But there, a Washington Post investigation found that the board has been, at best, struggling at both for years, leaving families who have already suffered an unimaginable loss waiting for justice and putting even more families at risk. And one of these families is the Pucketts. Following the birth of their first child via C-section in 2012, Naomi Puckett wanted to deliver her second child vaginally. So when she got pregnant again in 2014, she hears about Tina Overton and her business titled Birth Lily Childbirth Services through an advocacy group promoting access to VBACs, which is vaginal birth after C-section. And according to the Pucketts, Overton told them that she was a certified professional midwife and had years of training. And an important thing to note here is that the state of Maryland prohibits certified professional midwives from attending VBACs at home because the delivery poses a higher risk. Though Naomi says she had no idea about that at the time. And Overton helped her through a successful delivery of their second daughter in August of 2015. So gold star, everything's good. And when they learned that they were expecting again in 2017, the Pucketts once again hire Overton. On September 10th, 2017, Naomi goes into active labor. So Overton comes over to the house, and with her is a doula, which is a support person for women going through labor. But by early the next morning, Naomi's labor had stalled, and there were hours that passed without any checks to her vitals or the baby's heart rate. And at around 9 a.m., Naomi had been in labor for over 24 hours. Overton then using a Doppler to listen to the baby's heartbeat, and then telling the couple that they should drive themselves to the local hospital. And it's there that the hospital staff pronounced the baby boy dead in utero. With Overton arriving shortly after, and very notably, she introduced herself to the staff as Naomi's doula, doula rather than midwife, with Naomi then being diagnosed with preeclampsia and spending days recovering in the ICU. And so then, fast forward a few months later, she shares her story in the Birth Circle of Baltimore Facebook group. And that's where she hears for the first time that Overton had absolutely no credentials to work as a midwife, with the North American Registry of Midwives director telling the Post they had no record of Tina Overton being credentialed, and the state nursing board's public databases don't list her as a licensed midwife. So the Pucketts then they take their case to the police, but they end up getting turned away, with the police saying that it wasn't a criminal matter. And so then they tried an attorney, but no one had any interest in a case against an unlicensed practitioner who likely didn't have any malpractice insurance. And so in 2018, they were encouraged to file a complaint with the State Board of Nursing, with Naomi writing she is illegally practicing midwifery care, putting mothers and babies at risk. She has devastated our family. And when asked about Overton, she said, if